Curtis 50 Cent Jackson is a man of many talents. He rose to fame as a rapper, but before that, he was skilled in making silly little recipes and being fairly resistant to bullets. Since his music took off, he's moved on to TV shows, movies, clothing and shoe brands, liquor brand deals, colored sugar water, and even some light blogging on the side. Having several different streams of income has kept him rich and relevant years after his prime. However, one specific side hustle is the focus of today's video. The 2005 third-person shooter video game released on the PlayStation 2 and Xbox that was surprisingly not that bad. Even 50 Cent himself had some high expectations for the game.
This game is going to be the biggest video game to come out probably in the next 2-3 years. It's going to be exciting. And then I say 2-3 years because that's be how long it probably takes for me to do Bulletproof 2.
They essentially took the real life history of 50 Cent getting shot 9 times and spun it into a whole damn video game story. So today, let's talk about it. Developed by Genuine Games, a Scottish development studio whose only title before this game was a licensed game based on the movie Fight Club. It wasn't that good. Not much is really known about the development process of this game or why the game was even made. Gangster games were a weird niche of video games being made in the 2000s, with games like San Andreas, 25 to Life, Def Jam Vendetta, and Scarface all being brought to the market, for better or for worse. Perhaps 50 Cent decided to capitalize on this niche market and insert himself into the virtual gangster ecosystem, even while talking down on those video games in question. Tony Yayo, 50 Cent's right-hand man, is not a big fan of the Def Jam fighting games.
Like, you've seen other video games where rappers is fighting rappers and stuff like that. That game was kind of corny. I played that game before. I forgot the name of it, but I didn't really like it too much.
I scoured the web for any information on Genuine Games, or really anything about this game's development, and found a few interviews and articles around the game's time of release, and one interview with the producer of the game that is fairly recent. But that still results in not much developmental information on the game, but here's what I know. The idea of making a 50 Cent game seems to be the result of 50 Cent himself, Jimmy Iovine from Interscope Records, and Sean Krankel, known now for co-founding the development studio Night School, responsible for games like Oxenfree, but back then he was a producer at Vivendi Universal. Krankel apparently pitched the idea to Jimmy Iovine on the set of 50 Cent's PIMP music video. While 50 Cent was rapping his song and groping girls on top of a Rolls Royce, some dude is talking about making a video game that has a big focus on combat mechanics and fluidity of environments as 50 Cent hunts down the men responsible for getting him shot 9 times. As far out there as that idea was, there's no denying the talent and effort that there was in actually making this thing. Krankel was a producer on it, and as stated before, he now is responsible for games like Oxenfree. The director of the game, Andre Emerson, previously directed and wrote many of the Dead to Rights games. This game was written by Terrence Winter, who appropriately wrote the 50 Cent movie, Get Rich or Die Tryin', but more impressively, he's one of the executive producers and writers on the freaking Sopranos, as well as many more things. This game also has voice acting from Nolan North, Chad Coleman, and John DiMaggio, on top of 50 Cent himself, Eminem, and Dr. Dre, as well as the rest of G-Unit. The game was pretty star-studded and full of potential, but as things in the gaming industry go, money makes the world go round, and crunch schedules make games come out faster. This game was made from the ground up in 11 months, including 3D modeling, 50 and his friends, and getting all the dialogue needed to make the story work, and of course, make the actual game, and that has some ambitious combat and mechanics to it. The result, a lackluster game that is now perceived as a cash grab more than anything. Krankel himself thinks the game is shit and it could have been something better, but even he has fond memories of the development of the game.
That was crazy. We'd be doing these recording sessions at like 3 in the morning with him and 50 underground at Vivendi Studios, and like just 50 comes in, he's got like 8 people that come in and check under the toilet stalls to make sure there's nobody there to kill him, and then we go record.
Well, we've all been there.
We've been there.
But is the game really that bad? The game has a lot of good going for it. The crew was talented and dedicated to the game, and the quality of the writing as well as the voice acting was top notch. Everyone from 50 Cent and his crew to Dr. Dre and Eminem all not only did great with their lines, but they actually sounded dedicated to the role. Eminem even made this sort of semi-deep character out of being a money-hungry, corrupt cop, and the lines and delivery are just perfect throughout the whole game.
Eduardo Vasquez. Sounds Spanish.
Lou Petro was right. You are a great detective.
What can I tell you? I never heard of the guy.
Can you call it in?
Sure, for a price. I gotta pay for my kids' karate lessons.
How fucking much?
Every cutscene with Eminem in it is just top notch. Combine that with the fact that the cutscenes in this game are really well done. They are choreographed well, most of them have great angles and artistic direction, they're energetic and well acted and voiced, and some of them even come off as sort of a fever dream type feeling, having some crazy effects going on or flashbacks happening in the middle of talking. But also look at these chain swing and do-rag physics, you just don't see that every day. A lot of these cutscenes are really funny as well, the characters just have so much charm to them.
Think you can break his code?
I can't. But this here can. Invented it myself. It's gonna cost you though.
Alright, do it.
Well, all right.
Needless to say, I don't think this game was a simple cash grab. I genuinely think that everyone was interested in this game and there's a clear passion put into it. I've heard much worse voice acting and charisma from actual actors and voice actors. So for a bunch of rappers who haven't done anything like this before, they knocked it out of the freaking park. There's also a bunch of charm thrown everywhere in the game. Like most games around this time, the menu is a cell phone, but the game takes the extra step to have your music playlist on there, as well as music videos and behind the scenes stuff. But also, you can call your contacts and hear their voicemails, which are funny as shit.
Yeah, it's the Talk of New York, and right now I'm either fucking your bitch, getting some money, or doing something better to do with my time, but I'm tied up. Leave it.
The G-Unit squad all fit different roles in the game. 50 Cent is the player character, obviously, but Lloyd Banks is a lockpicking expert, Tony Yayo does explosive stuff, Young Buck is good with guns, I guess, and Dr. Dre is a back alley firearms dealer. Like, a really good one. Dude has rocket launchers and shit.
This is some serious shit right here. Can't host it. Then again, you won't need to.
And the environments are super detailed and honestly pretty cool. I really like the way that they did this open roam area in Queens where you can go to 50's apartment and all the various characters for odds and ends like buying music tracks, execution moves, meds, and of course guns. And when you need to start a level, you hop on the subway and select on the map where you're going. It's actually pretty cool. The game on paper seems like a 10 out of 10, but to understand why this game is perceived as bad, we need to see how the gameplay was implemented. But first, let's go over the story that's told here that's actually really good.
Yo, Fitty, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, I'm in position.
Got you right there on the screen. Hey man, just so you know, from this point on, I can keep a complete record of all your movements.
Cool.
So, what's the game about? Well, the game may be called 50 Cent Bulletproof, but that whole thing is a fucking lie. Not only does the game start with Curtis getting shot 9 times, making him bullet resistant at best, not bulletproof, but the game also costs a whole lot more than 50 Cent. Alright, that was lame. The game opens with 50 Cent's friend K-Dog calling him asking for help, saying he's in some trouble, and like a good homie, 50 grabs his gun and he heads out the door to help, assembling the gangster rap Avengers along the way. They arrive to find that K-Dog is indeed in a bit of trouble with some paramilitary jerks who immediately turn on the approaching G-Unit. At the end of this squabble is where 50 Cent is shot 9, count 'em, 9 times. From here, 50 Cent is brought to Doc Friday, a doctor that lost his license because he was writing prescriptions for himself. However, I am unsure if he sterilized his belly button hair before patching up 50. Here, 50 Cent trips out on a little pain pills before he's up and at 'em and ready to go. You start roaming around Queens where 50 Cent lives, talking to your friends and acquaintances, trying to get some information on who shot you, but mostly just introducing you to people that you'll be interacting with throughout the game. Bugs, the guy in a wheelchair that runs the pawn shop, he's already looted your apartment and tried to sell your things because he thought you were dead.
What the fuck? That's my stereo. And my plasma too. What's all this doing here?
You was shot 9 times, dawg. How'd I know you was gonna live?
But he's also the guy that gives you tips and objectives throughout the game through an earpiece. Grizz, a Gulf War veteran who sells guns out of his van now, played by Dr. Dre, he provides you with weapons and ammo throughout the game.
Shit, well for that, you're talking to the right nigga.
Popcorn, a crazy guy that lives in an abandoned theater and quotes movies all the time.
Ha! Say hello to my little friend.
Give me that shit. What the fuck, man? You out your goddamn mind, you stupid fuck.
Mama says stupid is as stupid does.
He teaches you your execution moves and also texts you on your cell phone tips and tricks. And finally, Detective McVicker, a dirty cop who 50 uses to get some information from in exchange for money that he uses to buy some nice gifts for his kids.
Ever see those skateboards? The new fiberglass ones with the chrome wheels? My kid loves those things. Fucking expensive though, especially on a cop salary.
Here we go.
What? I'm just saying, they're a lot of money.
Okay, how much?
From McVicker, he learns that K-Dog is in a warehouse in Scarsdale under FBI protection and interrogation. So 50 Cent and Lloyd Banks head out there to find out what's going on. They arrive to find K-Dog and the FBI agents dead, seemingly by the same militia group that you fought in the opening level. Detective 50 Cent notices a strange new tattoo on K-Dog's arm, and he finds K-Dog's phone and takes them back to Bugs at the pawn shop, learning along the way from McVicker that 50 Cent is now the prime suspect in killing K-Dog and the FBI agents, being framed by somebody. From decoding the messages on the phone, 50 Cent learns that K-Dog was supposed to be meeting up with a crystal meth dealer named Spider. So that's the next objective to tackle. You head to the junkyard in Brooklyn, run by some bikers, where Spider is supposed to be calling home. The bikers aren't too friendly, but 50 Cent also introduces himself as K-Dog, who they know is dead, so it's a little sketchy and fairly understandable why they start shooting.
Never seen a dead dude walking before.
Calm down, son.
Now who the fuck are you?
Spider himself isn't so kind to 50 Cent's arrival either.
Howdy, fucker. You here to see me?
After shooting it out with Spider, 50 notices that he has the same strange tattoo that K-Dog had on his arm, and the bleeding out Spider tells him,
It's fuck you in Arabic.
Before using the exploding meth lab as a way to escape, but that's pretty short-lived, and 50 Cent takes the opportunity to cut off his tattoo and take it back with him. He heads back to Bugs to show him the tattoo.
Damn, 50, this how you gonna wake a nigga up?
And they trace it back to a creepy Asian dude with an eye patch named Wu Jang, who also happens to be a drug kingpin. Obviously, it's time to head to Chinatown and kill the crap out of Wu Jang and steal all of his money in the process.
Shit, it's fucking payday.
But this isn't the end of the game. Clearly there's bigger fish to fry. On the subway ride home, the militia group hop on the train and shoot it out with 50, leading to a pretty destructive derailment and further shootouts in the subway tunnels, until the leader of this heavily armed group is killed at the end, where 50 finds out just who these guys are. Turns out they're DEA agents, making things a lot more complex. After this monumental discovery, 50 spends the next day in bed with some friends, and he even gets a little smooch from Eminem. He asks McVicker for information on this dirty DEA agent, but first he has to take out someone for him, an ex-cop named Petro who's trying to get McVicker canned for being a dirty cop. McVicker wants him taken out before he can testify, so 50 Cent and Tony Yayo head to the projects to do just that. Anxious to get back on track and get all the info he needs from McVicker, 50 heads back to Queens, but first he has a conversation with the local bum that sees all, where he learns that K-Dog was a part of some drug conspiracy ring, and learns about a waterfront warehouse that is importing drugs from out of the country, specifically Colombia, Turkey, and Afghanistan. 50 Cent heads to the docks to find out some information on the shipping schedules, and the crew there aren't too happy with him sniffing around. He gets his shipping schedules either way. Heading back to Queens, 50 Cent's happy to tell this homeless man about his success when a car drives by, doing a drive-by, clearly aiming at the old man, shooting him down. Shit's getting real deep. At the old man's funeral, 50 Cent meets his daughter, Alexa, and she has a bunch of new information about this whole thing. Turns out this homeless man was an undercover CIA agent trying to uncover this whole smuggling operation that K-Dog and now 50 Cent are wrapped up in. Meeting with McVicker, 50 finds out the leader of this rogue DEA unit is Detective Spinoza, and he's the one pulling the strings, and not only that, he's the one who shot 50 Cent 9 times. He also gets a lead to go talk to an Eduardo Vasquez, someone McVicker says probably isn't too talkative, but fails to mention that's because he's dead. He's a drug mule for this operation that died overdosing on a bag of drugs in his stomach, but the bag that burst in his stomach wasn't heroin like the ME thought, it was opium, not your typical street drug. McVicker tells 50 Cent of a recent arrest of a wise guy in Little Italy that involved opium, but there was an informant on the case so no charges stuck, so of course, G-Unit's off to fight the mafia now.
What the fuck you guys doing in here?
I was hoping to get a bet then.
Okay, I bet you don't make it out of here alive.
which doesn't go too well. It has 50 Cent and friends hung up on meat hooks getting slaughtered by the mob boss with a chainsaw, you know, Scarface style. Luckily, Dr. Dre shows up in time to save 50 before he gets chopped up. They shoot their way out of this meat processing plant that the mafia operates, and after they kill the mob boss himself, they find out that he was the informant, and they find his recorded tapes that has him in discussions with the DEA agent Spinoza, as well as a third person named Muhammad, the one that's smuggling all the drugs, but he also doubles as a terrorist, bringing in opium as well as guns and explosives into New York. After discovering all this, Spinoza and Muhammad capture Alexa to get some leverage on 50, and at the same time, McVicker decides to arrest 50, seeing all this as a giant opportunity to bust it down and get all the glory. So he arrests 50 Cent so he doesn't fuck it up.
Oh, did I mention that you had the right to remain silent and all that shit?
But 50 Cent doesn't spend time in the jail cell long. In comes the former homeless man / CIA undercover agent / Alexa's dad / Rose from the Dead gangster / Booker. I don't think I've actually said his name yet. Booker. He comes in to bust out 50 Cent looking dapper as fuck. G-Unit heads to the docks to end this once and for all. They meticulously take out all the hired goons before reaching Muhammad and getting rid of that terrorist, and there's no intro or post-kill cutscene or anything, you just kinda do it. Muhammad seems like he was really an afterthought in this game. But then it's time to confront Spinoza, who still has Alexa hostage. McVicker also comes in right as you get in his face, but he quickly gets a bullet to the patella.
You stay here, I'm going after.
Where the fuck am I gonna go, man?
The AI on this fight is incredibly dumb, making it probably the easiest fight in the game, so you quickly get rid of Spinoza.
One thing they didn't teach you in the DEA, when you go to kill someone, make sure they're fucking dead.
G-Unit walks off the scene as SWAT enters to make sure everyone's actually dead and secure it. Booker thanks him for his help and suspiciously scurries away from his daughter who thought he was dead. And 50 Cent says I'll see you later and smacks her ass as soon as he walks away. The charm on this guy, man. And at the very end, he has some final words with McVicker. Probably my favorite cutscene in the entire game.
How you feeling?
I've been shot. What do you think?
I think I got a pretty good idea how that feels.
It was just business, 50. Nothing personal.
You take care of yourself, McVicker.
What's this for?
I don't know. Spend it on your kid.
Tell you the truth, I don't even have a kid.
To tell you the truth, that gives me some hope for humanity.
So now let's talk about the downside of this game, the real negatives. The gameplay is clunky at best. Don't get me wrong, it looks good and it has its moments, and compared to similar games at the time like The Punisher, which was good, and 25 to Life, which was very not good, it falls somewhere in the middle, maybe leaning closer to 25 to Life. The gameplay is like both of those games essentially, a third-person shooter with a run-and-gun playstyle. You take cover, you use flashy execution moves, and you even try to sneak around if you want to. There's actually a lot of guns to choose from in this game as well. The van that Dr. Dre drives around puts most military bunkers to shame, and once you buy or unlock them, they also show up in 50 Cent's apartment on the wall. But overall, the structure to the gameplay isn't that bad. I think the biggest problem is the bugs. Not the character, but like bugs. The opening area of the game bugged out for me several times. You're supposed to wait for Lloyd Banks to pick a lock, but he won't do that unless the area is clear, which is cool. You shoot all the baddies and then he starts picking the lock, but then more spawn in, and if they shoot at him, he stops again, and this process repeats. I also got stuck on the second lock to this level for the same reason, except this time he would never even attempt to pick the lock. Also, don't mind this green filter thing. I couldn't get the emulator running at first, and I was seeing if it would just go away after beating the first level and loading onto the next. It didn't. I just had to adjust the settings of the game to make it run well. But that's no fault of this game, it's just a bad game to emulate, I guess. But the point still stands, the AI in general is just clunky. I mean, going back to the boss fight of the game, it's just really silly. The controls are also pretty bad. You can cycle through all your guns with one button, but if you pass the gun that you want, you have to keep scrolling all the way around to get back to it. There's no way to go to the previous gun. And also, a single button, the square button, is responsible for 4 different tasks: reloading your gun, executing enemies when you're close to them, looting dead enemies, and then taking cover, none of which can be done simultaneously. There's a lot of times where you are running up on a guy and you try to execute him with a flashy move and you start reloading in his face, not being able to cancel the reload, so you just get shot up a bunch of times. But that's pretty typical of a lot of PS2, Xbox games around this time. The controls are just very meh. I feel like if this game had a PC release, a lot of that would be alleviated, but this was a console-only game. Like I said earlier, the open world part of this game was really dope. I like how you can go up to the different characters and get what you want or need throughout the game. You can get flashy execution moves from Popcorn, you can get your guns and armor from Dr. Dre, you can buy bootleg copies of your own music and videos from DJ Who Kid. Doc Friday has meds and vitamin water to keep you extra healthy. It's a really well done concept, and that part of the game is still really cool. Since this was a game made under the umbrella of 50 Cent and therefore the larger umbrella of Interscope Records, as well as Eminem being in the game, so Aftermath Records, there's like 20 different logos as this game starts up. The music played a massive part in this game. There was even an 18-track album of 50 Cent released concurrent with this game called Bulletproof, and was included in the game's soundtrack, as well as nearly every 50 Cent single that he's had up until this game's release, and a lot of the instrumentals to the songs as well, so it's not just constant rapping in the background the whole time. As far as soundtracks go, I'd say this one's pretty damn good. I'm someone who likes rap and hip hop, and when this came out, of course I liked 50 Cent. He was one of the biggest artists out at the time, and the game was just better because of that. It also won the best original song in a video game at the 2005 Spike Video Game Awards. Now, of course, I can't really play or showcase any of the music in this video because it's all copyrighted, but it's all really good stuff. I mean, you can go and listen to the Bulletproof soundtrack right now. It's pretty decent if you like rap. So, after all this, did the people enjoy this game? Mostly no. However, I did. I loved this game back in the day, bugs and all, and even playing it this year, it's not that bad. Yeah, the dialogue and the fashion sense of 2005 doesn't really carry over to today, but the game has sincere quality to it in nearly all aspects of the game. I think it's weird that people bash this game so hard on YouTube. Nearly every video that I found that reviews this game is just completely negative, except some Ordinary Gamer's playthrough, where he too is shocked at how interesting and entertaining this game is.
But as far as I can say, the game is actually not that bad of a third-person shooter, and if you're in for a jolly good combination of celebrities and the fucking weirdest combo ever, check out 50 Cent Bulletproof, alright?
But I can't say that people liked it on release either, so maybe there is some merit to the hate. Most reviewers praise the story, cutscenes, and music, but bash the gameplay hard, which, you know, is pretty accurate, I guess. I'm just quick to ignore some janky gameplay in favor of some other things that are done well. There's also a PSP version of the game released the next year in 2006 as well, called the G-Unit Edition, that sold pretty well and also scored a tad bit higher than the PS2 and Xbox versions, offering a different top-down perspective on the action. So if it was received badly, that means that the game flopped and was lost to time forever then, right? No. It actually sold incredibly well, 5 million units according to Grankle in this Giant Bomb interview. And if you follow the channel, that's more than fucking Bully sold, a substantially better game. So a sequel was greenlit and eventually made, because publishers do be liking that money.
Is money the only thing that matters to you?
That's pretty funny coming from a guy who calls himself 50 Cent.
50 Cent Blood on the Sand was released in 2009, and even though it was received much better than Bulletproof, it sold practically nothing. I guess 50 Cent in the desert, chasing around a diamond-encrusted skull, didn't really appeal to a lot of people in 2009. I think he was just a bit past his prime at that point, and weird, funny license games were just falling out of fashion. Even though this game was a pretty solid game.
Yo, 50, jump over that big-ass ramp!
All in all, this game is pretty insane. I personally think that it gets more hate than it deserves, and I recommend you checking it out if you want to tinker with an emulator or buy it on original hardware. It's a jolly old time. And at the end of the day, I do think it's worth more than 50 Cent. Shout out to all my supporters on Patreon. You guys are the G's to my unit. Well that sounded wrong. The Chad himself, D. Schwinn, Kid Kingpin, Doug Smith, Anonymous Starkweather, Sofa Pals Production, Zachary Parkerson, Crash Bandicoot 25, and Potty. Thank you all for being gangster. I appreciate you. Thank you to all my homies holding it down in the Discord. Hop on there and hang out, post some memes. It's a really good time. And thank all of you for watching, especially if you made it this far. Hope to see you next time. Peace.